Why are you here today? What is your number one career goal? This is your first opportunity. Put it in the comments if you want. Certainly put it on paper. Write this down. Don't stay in your head. Write down what is your number one career goal currently. And while you are just letting this flow, right, I'm going to plead with you. Do not water this down, right? Now is not the time to think about all of the barriers. There will be considerable barriers. I'm not going to lie to you. There will be things, questions to answer, things that we need to move through. But this stage is about sticking with the dream. What is it that you want, right? What are the things that are going to be like, oh my gosh, this would be amazing if I could have these 8 things, Caroline, or 10 things. Notice I'm not saying 2 or 3. I want you to have 15 things. I want you to have 20 things, right? We're pushing the boundaries today. Put all of the things you want and stay away. I've heard me talk about the word realistic before. Now is not the time to worry about it being realistic. First of all, I promise it is. But second, oftentimes that is our gremlin speaking to us and just chattering at us with the fear and the barriers and, well, here are all the trade-offs I need to make, and those can serve to overshadow and water down our vision in the first place. And so it is so important at this stage to stick with, okay, what's the dream here, right? So way more than you think. And oftentimes what happens here, actually, Elijah and I were chatting as we were prepping for this, and Elijah shared with me, oh, well, when I was making my change, he's like, I knew I wanted to have fun, I knew I wanted to talk to people, and I knew I wanted to make an impact. And I bet a lot of you might have some of those things, if not all of those, on your list, right? What is that? What do we call it? He didn't know it was coaching, right? It took time and this consistency and staying with it, as we're going to be talking about. But he knew these things, right? And so I would also say maybe it's a good thing that you don't have. I mean, if you have a label that feels good and you know exactly, if you're crystal clear on what you want, don't let me stop you. But I think so often with labels, we get so caught up on what is this? What is the industry? Is it a business? Is it working for someone else? All good questions, all questions for later in the process, right? Right now, we just want the nuggets. We want, what are the things where you're going to wake up in the morning and think, oh my gosh, I can't believe these are the people I get to work with, or this is how I get to start my day, or I don't have to start my day until noon. Whatever those things are, that's what we want to stay with. Because the other dynamic I often see here is we conflate what it is that I want with how I'm going to get there. Again, we'll figure out how you're going to get there. That's not a today question. Today's question is, what do I want? Stay with that. Not what I'm supposed to accept, what I think is possible, but what I truly want. It's such a simple question, and yet sometimes so hard to answer if we don't stay with it and stay present with it. And the last thing I want to add here is, if you're really, really stuck and you're just like, I have no idea, Caroline, it's not working, right? Those things you bump in, and I just invite you as you kind of go throughout the day to day, right? What's not working? And start training yourself. This is a great habit to start. Start training yourself. Oh, this toxic boss is really not working for me. Well, what I want instead, right? I want a boss with these qualities. I don't want a boss, right? I want a shorter commute. I want to ride my bike to work, right? I want to move to a different part of my home to work, right? Just start. Again, I think we get stopped with all of the things that are broken. And I think it is such a simple, not necessarily easy, but simple step to then let's extend it. All right, this thing is not working. What would I like instead, right? And just be present to that question. All right, so let's now go. Hopefully that's gotten the juices flowing a little bit. And again, this is not a one and done activity. I hope this is just the start of you doing this. We're going to have some fun here. We're going to do a little quiz. And to my beautiful achievers, this is not a competition. This is not evaluation. All right, I can see who's an achiever because I can see who smiled when I said this. This is a point in time snapshot, right? These are some data points that we're going to use to help us fact find and understand the true lay of the land, right? So I won't see your grades, right? There is no grade. This is just a snapshot. And I'm gonna fire hose, like I said, and we're gonna put some questions on here, and I just want you to simply give it one number on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, not at all, 10, always. And there will be math, so make it easy on yourselves. Don't be like, oh, this is a 4.375. Pick a whole number. Pick the nearest whole number. I'm not between a 5 and a 6. I'm either a 6 or a 5. Fair, everyone with me? All right, let's go. First question. Oh, first question. What I'm doing is working. Is what you're doing working? And I don't mean working at your job. I mean, is it successful? Are the things you're doing bringing you closer to your goal? 10, always. I got it on lock, Caroline. I don't even know why I'm on this call. 1, not at all. Somewhere in between. Okay, next one. I am clear about what I truly want. Again, not a label. If you know the label, great, but this is just about those elements, right? Are you clear about enough of those elements? Again, don't need to have the whole thing, but we have enough clarity. Okay, 10, yes. 1, not at all. Somewhere in between, probably. Next one. I am confident that I can find or create it. Okay, so I got my widgets, I got my building blocks. Caroline, I'm afraid this does not exist, right? Or I'm afraid I'm gonna have to sacrifice something major, right? So 10, totally confident, 1, not at all. Next one. Ooh, hopefully this one hits you in the chest muscle. My actions are aligned with what I want in career and life. So I want you to imagine you're a satellite in the sky. You're looking down on yourself as you go throughout your work day, your work week, your time on the weekends, your time in the evening, your time in the morning, who you are with your friends and family, how you're showing up at work. How aligned are those actions with what you want? Okay, next one. I am consistently talking to people about my number one career goal. So there's a bunch of things in this question. I'm going to break it down for you. Okay, consistently. So are we having regular conversations, or is it like quarterly? Oh, I better light up my network and talk to people because I had a bad work day, right? So am I doing this on a regular, weekly, monthly? You decide the frequency, but am I consistently? Am I talking to people, or am I spending a lot of time in my head, in my own thoughts, on the interwebs, asking Chat GPT? Chat GPT is not a people. Chat GPT does not count as a people yet. We'll see. And are you talking to them about your number one career goal? This was a trap I fell into for the better part of my career. I talked to my friends all the time about work. And one friend in particular, we would get together and we would just complain to each other about the latest indignity or the latest drama. And so we were talking about our careers, but it was very much focused on where we currently were. I don't think we ever had a conversation about what could be different or what we'd like to be different. So again, where do you put yourself on this spectrum? 10, yep, nailing this one, Caroline. 1, not at all. Next one. Okay, now I'm just trolling. I believe, Caroline, I won't see your score, so you don't have to fess up if you don't believe me. But when I say things like, oh, you don't have to start over. You don't have a pay cut. You can have 15 things. You don't need to settle for 3 or 4, right? Do you believe that? 10, yes, I'm committed. I'm not going to start over or take a pay cut or succumb to my limiting beliefs. 1, not at all. All right, next one. Okay, so this is a double negative, so stick with me here. I have to think this through myself. I do not feel failure, wrong turns, or rejection, right? So if you're like, failure, what's that? Wrong turns? I can't make a mistake. If that's you, you're a 10. Or sorry, right, yeah, you're a 10 if you do not fear those things. If those play upon your thinking a lot, right? Well, what if I fail? What if I make a mistake? What if I end up somewhere worse off, right? Then you're a 1, or that's the spectrum, somewhere on that spectrum. All right, now let us add them all up. This is a total of 70. Let's go to the next slide, please. What are the numbers telling you? Share in the comments. What patterns are you seeing? What surprises do you see? Right? Something to think about. What are the things that maybe contradicts each other? So if you're like, Caroline, everything's great, what I'm doing is working. But then when you look at the sub questions, you're kind of like, I rated these kind of low. Like what's that disconnect about? Or conversely, right? If you rated, oh, nothing's I'm doing is working, Caroline. But then you look and actually a lot of these sub questions I'm doing okay on, right? Is it across the board? We're at 4 for all of them, or what I would probably expect is some things you're probably doing pretty well on. Great, let's keep those up. And maybe there are just a couple of areas that we have to massage and figure out. With me, seeing patterns, seeing things that surprised you. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I want to get to the roadmap. And before we do that, just want a quick introduction. You all know me, most of you know Elijah, but just want to share a few things about us. We are both career and leadership coaches, leadership being the primary here because everything in life starts with how we show up for ourselves, how we show up in the world, how are we leading, right? We are that power combo of INTJ, ENFP. If you know, you know. If you don't know, suffice it to say that we are both great in our own ways about seeing the possibilities, helping you get to that big picture, helping extract what it is that you truly want. And then making it crunchy, whether that's through connections, whether that's through possibilities, whether that's through structure and process. That is what we do. And I wanted to share a story because I think it touches on a bunch of points that we're going to get to when we get through the roadmap. And that is that Elijah and I actually met, and every time Elijah reminds me how long ago this was, it surprises me. I think it's 5 years, but I think he tells me it's like 7 years. Anyway, it was a long time ago. And we actually met in an interview. Elijah was interviewing me for a role for a coaching agency. And just the way Elijah showed up, right? He was not your typical interviewer, right? He could have been this like taskmaster, like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Give me 3 examples, right? We've all been through those interview questions. It was just the quality of his questions, the presence. You see him as like a glowing beacon of light around him. And it was just so appealing. And it was such a lovely conversation. At some point, I even said to him, you sound like a coach. Like, you're asking me these questions, you sound like a coach. And he said, funnily enough, Caroline, that's something I've been thinking about. And that really began, it didn't start right away, right? But it over time, over the weeks, months, and years, as it's now turned out, that started a conversation, right? He ended up, pursuing the coaching path, going to the same coaching training program that I went to. And here we are years later, from an interview to we're working together in our businesses, right? And he's one of the people I call when I need support, right? And I guess I'm curious. I mean, if this has happened to you, great, but it strikes me as a pretty rare occurrence, right? Is that from an interview, something like this could happen. And it is all because of how Elijah was showing up in that, who he was being. And the point here I want to make is that you are always communicating what you want, who you are, what's important to you, either by what you say explicitly or maybe what you don't say, what you hold back, right? Imagine if I had said to Elijah, you sound like a coach. And he said, thank you. And then nothing else, right? We probably wouldn't be here right now. And so I invite you, and we'll talk more about this concept later, but it is so important to be speaking into the universe and speaking to people about what it is that you like, especially because he did not know at that point, he hadn't even gone to coach school yet. He did not know that coaching was his destiny, right? He was just like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that. Okay, so hopefully this is landing with you, and we're gonna anchor this in some roadmap principles in a moment. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, milestone number 1, what is truly getting in the way of the career you want? And for all of these, right, This is not the entire roadmap and you don't need anything else. This is a starting point for today's call, right? To get the juices flowing. So for each of these, I'm going to give you one action, maybe two, right? But it's not meant to be everything you need. We just wouldn't have time to do it all in this format. But one of the most foundational and important things you can do is dedicate regular space for this work to be honest, right? We already practiced being honest and present with what it is that you truly want. It'll also give us those opportunities to, like, there will be barriers to say, okay, this is a barrier. How do I work through this? So not just what's in your way, but how can we problem solve it? And I think what a lot of people think about this, or the way that a lot of people think about this, is in terms of time, right? And I bet if I were a mean coach and I was like, everyone must find an hour of time to think about this, like you could find the time on your calendar, even if you're very, very busy, you can find the time. It's often more about energy, right? If your hour a week, and I'm just using hour as a marker, if you want it to be 30 minutes every 2 weeks, 2 hours each week, fine, pick your format. But if that time is at the end of, Friday afternoon, at the end of a draining work week, right? How much energy you're going to have to really think big and bold about what you truly want, right? If you're in a noisy household and you're constantly being interrupted, right? So maybe it's like your Saturday morning, you have plenty of time, but you're getting agitated because, people keep interrupting you and asking you for things. So I want you to commit on this call, not just to finding that time, but also to commit to the energy. What is the energy you want to bring to it, right? I want to feel peaceful, light. I want to feel expansive, whatever the words are that resonate with you. And just in case this action is getting an eye roll from you, I want you to imagine the compounding effect of the message you are sending to your brain, even subconsciously, right? If you start showing up for yourself every week or every other week, imagine between now and the end of the year, you show up and you prioritize an hour of your time for yourself 10 times, 8 times, 5 times. Imagine, again, even if it's subconscious at first, what that is sending to your brain when you're like, of all of the things that I could be doing, of all the things that could be taking my time and attention, I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my career. I'm making space for what I want, right? You see these words: prioritizing, choosing, investing, right? You are going to feel, I try not to predict, but I predict you are going to feel like a freaking boss, right? Just through this simple act. Again, this doesn't need to be hard. We think it needs to be so hard. And it can be as simple as showing up regularly. Okay. And I also invite you, like, make it a space you can't wait to enter. For me, it's like pan au chocolat and a coffee on the patio in the sun. Or I walk this path every day called the Angel Path. Amazing things have happened to me on this path. It is just a place where anything could be going on. And then I go to this place and just the stuff is still there, but it lifts. It's not as heavy. I can work my way through it, right? So find that space, physical, mental, psychological, all of those elements. Find that space for yourself. And by way of illustration, I want to share Josh's story. You might have seen it. It's pinned on my YouTube. I encourage you to go listen to it because it's very inspiring. He had been working for 15 years to try to figure out what he wanted to do, right? So that very first question, he was stuck. He knew he wanted to start a business, but for 15 years, he had been banging his head against the wall. And he took the group coaching class, and I think it was either just like the first session or maybe even before we had just opened the curriculum and hadn't even started the live calls. He takes his notebook, he goes into his backyard, and he just allows himself to dream about what he wants. And he says, Caroline, it just came flowing out of me. And one of the things he says in his video afterwards is, like, he goes to bed at night thinking about it and he wakes up in the morning thinking about it. So from that, I want you to take, it's not one and done. I'm not saying, oh, just give it an hour and it will flow to you. It might not. It might take some more showing up for yourself. And at some point, when you continuously do that, it will come, and it is about the consistent practice. With me? Hopefully this is resonating. Tell me in the comments, ask your questions. Let's go to the next milestone, please. All right. All right. Mastering your mindset. You know, I'm going to talk about mindset. And I invite you to look through some of the most common flavors, right? Maybe you have all of these, right? Great. You're not alone. Welcome to humanity, right? But look at the false choices. I can make money or have something fulfilling, right? I can't do both, right? What are people going to think? And what's behind this often is what are people going to think dot 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 when I fail, right? We're not like what are people going to think when I make this change and I'm amazingly successful and blissful and happy, right? It's oh people there's some underneath this, right? With all of these, there's probably like a cornucopia of other limiting beliefs and fears that sit underneath them, okay? And you've heard me talk before about mindset in terms of, you know, this is going to be your lifelong work, right? And it is. You've heard me talk about scarcity. And yes, I've gotten much better at recognizing when scarcity shows up for me and moving through it when it shows up. And it will be probably something, hello, old friend, that crops up all the time for me. And I want to talk about something I usually don't talk about in this space, which is so many of these limiting beliefs, you will have those really sticky ones, right? You will also have a bunch that when you get out of your head and you look on paper and you just say, is that really true? Where does that come from? Can I think of examples that contradict this? They're just going to fall away. They're just going to fall away. And so I really invite you to start the process of, as these beliefs come up, again, not in your head, on paper, challenge them. This is part of the way that we clear up space, right? And allow ourselves that. So then we have more energy and time and attention that we can dedicate to the really sticky, really challenging ones. But so often people will say to me, you know, early in coaching, they'll be like, I'll remember writing that, Caroline, but I just don't feel it anymore. Or as soon as I got it down on paper, I was like, that's not true. That's not how I want to live my life, right? So give yourself the gift of just clearing out some of this clutter. And the way I want to illustrate this point is so often when I get on my strategy calls with people, oftentimes it's people who have struggled in their careers for a really long time and, you know, really want to change and for, you know, whatever reason are kind of struggling to move through the process. And they'll so many of the times, like unprompted, will say to me, oh, but I found my dream husband or dream partner, right? Or I'm this triathlete, right, that is number 2 in the amateur rankings. Or I had a couple of these people that I actually worked with in the last round, and they were like, oh, yeah, I don't question any of my parenting choices. It is an area where I'm so confident that I never second guess myself, which to me, I'm just like, wow, like I'm not even a parent and I second guess myself. Like sometimes I'll think, why do I think about this? I don't know, but I'll be like, how would I handle this if I were a parent? Like I drive myself crazy not being a parent. If you're actually a parent and you're like, oh no, I fully trust myself, that is a superpower, right? And we all have those areas. Every single person on this call has at least one, probably several areas that you are just crushing and you are not recognizing it because it comes so easily to you, right? You don't feel the fear because you've mastered it, right? And so where other people would be like, I could never do that, right? They're perhaps at the place where you are with your career where those things are barriers to you. And so I just invite you to focus on the areas. Again, this is just a starting point. This is not a magic elixir, but focus on those areas that you feel really good, that you feel really confident, that you hit roadblocks and you're like, I'll figure it out. I know I can do this. Port that over. Really mine those because that's where you're going to be able to find so many nuggets of you at your best. Again, not having barriers. I promise you have barriers in those areas where you succeeded. You just have mastered the art of moving through them, right? And so port that over, okay? This is landing with people, ask your questions, challenge Elijah. Challenge Elijah, let's make him work. Challenge Elijah if you're wrestling with these ideas, right? Okay, let's go to milestone number 3. Please building your success team. You've heard me talk about this one as well. So important. I say this as an introvert. I say this as an introvert who loves my alone time and being in my head, right? Find those people doing cool, aligned things, right? They are not only going to connect you to the opportunities, But there's a whole world out there, right? And so often we are just marinating and people are just mirroring back to us the fears we already feel, right? The barriers we already see, right? All of the roadblocks, all of the questions that you are already tying yourself up in knots. And so, of course, the people swimming in the same fish tank are going to see that same perspective. It's when mixing my metaphors here. When we get out of that fish tank and into a different bubble, when we get out of our bubble and into a different bubble, that's where stuff really starts to shift for us. When I was in corporate, I remember thinking, this is embarrassing, but I'm saying it because I want this to resonate with you. Is like there is a way forward. I was not only unhappy working for a bank and my soul was crushed, but the last role I had was just in the most boring part of the bank that there possibly could be. So that like the work itself, always before I could deny myself, because I'd be like, the work is interesting. The work was not interesting. My brain was dying. It was horrible. And literally remember thinking to myself, Caroline, you can either stay where you are or you can go to a different bank and do the same thing, which is ridiculous because I'd been multiple decades into my career at that point. I could have pivoted in a bunch of different directions, but I didn't see that, right? Because I was in this bubble, right? Where everyone else was like, this sucks, but hey, it's a paycheck, whatever, all of the things we tell ourselves, right? And so Teresa, who is on this call, and I'm sure would be, well, I don't want to, Teresa can say whether she's open to this or not, but she is a beautiful evangelist. Teresa took this single concept from the group coaching course, which I call shouting from the mountaintops, which is just literally every person you come into contact with, you tell them what you want. Like she is better than I am at this concept. I'm not kidding you. She's just mastered it. By the way, she's an introvert and an INTJ. Okay. And she has, I'm going to miss all the things she's does. You should read her success story on the website because literally have to update it every 3 months because she's like created something new for herself. But she got herself a landing pad job. She was in the break room talking just about her career. She wasn't self-promoting. She wasn't angling for anything, talking about her career. That person she was talking to was like the CFO or something, mentioned to C-suite people on the other side of the company who had been looking for this elusive person that couldn't figure out who to hire. They're like, oh, no, you need to hire Teresa. That person exists in our company. So she just landed herself a promotion with literally not trying, just being herself and talking about herself. I'm telling you, this gets to be easy. I forgot she found a writing group. She just published, Teresa, your book is here. Published her first children's book. She has so many more in the hopper, which I cannot wait to share with you all. She's one about the 7 train to my New Yorkers that I'm so excited about. She has, in advocating for her son in New York City public schools, made such an impression on people, again, by being her beautiful INT, organized, respectful, smart, data-driven self. Has all these people in the education space in New York have started to pluck her out and name her to roles. And again, I could go on and on and on, but this is how it's done, right? And she is just kind of, what's the word, serially created all of these things for herself. If she can do it, I think she would say this too. Teresa is amazing, not to take away from that. If she can do it, you can do this too, right? Simple things. We just have to start sharing. Okay, let's go to number 4, which is going to be a surprise to even me. I can't remember. Okay, connecting your value to real life opportunities. So much I could say in this. What I want to focus on is, because again, this is another way that we clear space. This is an opportunity to really level up, right? To step back and be like, okay, I've been doing this thing that might have served a purpose or several for a while. It's no longer serving me in a way or enough that I want to stick with it. This is an opportunity to drop a whole lot of things that you have accumulated that you never want to do again. A lot of times people will come into the strategy calls and they'll say, Caroline, I'm really good at working with toxic people. I'm really good at diffusing conflict. And I'll say, do you want to do those things? And they'll say no. And I'll say, let's drop them. You never have to do these things again. And I'm kind of joking here, but I think if you all look at your careers, you can probably think of examples where you've just kind of like absorbed things, right? This is just what you have to do, right? Have you ever thought something like that? This, they call it work for a reason, right? This is just how it goes. This is what you have to accept. Take whatever, choose your aphorism, right? But these are all signals of us tolerating things that we don't need to tolerate. And so I really invite you, as you think about what you want, right? Truly want, not what you need to accept. Let's screen out those things. Oh, you don't want to take a pay cut? Great. I am not going to look at anything or accept any possibilities that do not earn equal or more, right? I don't want to work for a boss. Well, okay, I guess that means I'm looking for opportunities where I'm the boss, right? So even if you have fewer opportunities, great. Why waste time with a bunch of opportunities that are just going to drag us down and make the decision making part harder, right? Let's level up and screen out. Okay, and a bonus action here. I want to give a specific example that often comes up about, especially if you're thinking about moving into a new industry. First of all, 80%, I even want to say 90%, but at least 80% is totally transferable. The strengths you bring are the strengths you bring, right? The experience you bring is the experience you bring. It doesn't matter what new thing you go to, right? And so I want you to start, here's a mindset reframe. Rather than starting over, I want you to think of stepping into something more or a growth opportunity as opposed to like I'm back. No, you're already like miles down the racetrack, right? And what often comes up is people have this mantra of, oh, well, I don't have experience in this, whatever, new industry, new subject matter expertise, right? First of all, that's such a little part of the game, right? When it comes to what people bring, you're bringing leadership, especially if you've been in the game for decades. You bring leadership that translates. Things of CEOs moving between totally disparate things. CEOs is a whole other topic. Don't get me started. But you see those CEOs even tanking a company and then they move on to something totally different, right? Where they get a pay increase, where they get more responsibility, right? And so I want you to channel that part of being a CEO in terms of these pivots being opportunities to truly step up. And especially with the subject matter expertise, where might this thing that you're perceiving, I don't think it's a weakness, but I'll play along with you. Where might this perceived weakness of not knowing a subject matter, of being new to an industry, where might that actually set you apart? If we dropped you into an environment where everyone's like, this is how we've always done it, this is the way this works, and you're looking at it thinking, this is crazy, this is so inefficient, right? Isn't that a strength? Isn't that a strength? Right? And so I really encourage you, again, let's start challenging these mindset messages that I think with a little bit of, not even sophisticated, a little bit of intentional questioning are really going to prove themselves to not really be that strong. Okay. So let's go to milestone number 5, please. Okay. Habits, routine, sustained action. You have heard me talk about mindset, mindset, mindset. And this weird thing has happened in the mindset space that drives me crazy, which is like, oh, you just have to think your way, think beautiful thoughts, look at yourself in the mirror and chant how amazing you are, and everything will change. And if that works for you, go for it. And what the actual research shows, and here's an example. You wouldn't say to me, Caroline, I'm not a runner, but I looked at myself in the mirror for 40 days straight and I told myself I'm a runner, and now I am. But I didn't actually run, Caroline. I just believe it, right? You have to take that action, right? So yes, it's about shifting the belief, but what reinforces that belief so that it can actually be true, as opposed to an intellectual, like, I want that to believe this new thing, but I actually don't. You need to take that action. Okay. Same thing is true for your career, right? To believe I can make the money I want, what is the action that provides that proof? I don't expect you to sit here and flip from I don't think this is possible to this is possible. That would be ridiculous if I were a coach. If a coach tells you that, like, whatever, don't work with that coach. I would never tell you that, right? It's what can the action be? How am I going to find the proof for this? What's the evidence, right? And it's through this cycle of here's what I'd like to believe. Part of me believes it, but I'm really not fully on board. Okay, what's an action I can take to find out either way, right? And then get that real life data. Okay, now we're, oh, okay, oh, this could happen. And so I want to give you two examples here of this working in practice with salary. So Luke, love Luke, if you're watching this, shout out to Luke. Luke was going for a position. I can't remember the details exactly because this was a while ago, but it was a position I think a friend had kind of invited him to interview for. It was kind of a long shot. And so the stakes weren't super high for him, but he was kind of like, what the heck? And they asked him to, at the beginning, he had to give his salary. Like it wasn't something he could wiggle his way out of, as we tried to do. And he was like, he just went for the bigger, I can't remember if it was 2x what he made or 3 times what he made, but he just led with the biggest number he could think of. And he said, Caroline, they did not bat an eye. And so now I know that that number is my number and it's totally doable for me. Do you see how that action, they could have said no, they could have batted an eye, but it was through that courage, right? In asking for that, that was the clearest, best, fastest way to actually slay that limiting belief that he couldn't make. I mean, this was a number that was not even in his consciousness. He was like, it's make believe, right? Let's throw this out there. Conversely, right? I don't want to seem like I'm selling you these Pollyanna stories. My story, before I was a very reluctant business owner. When I decided I wanted to become a coach, I first looked for all of these ways that I could stay in a company or a company environment and be a coach. And the last one I tried, she came to me early in the interview process and she was like, Caroline, I cannot meet your salary requirements. The best I could do is half of this. And I was like, thank you. And we ended the process there, right? Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Think of all the times we play this weird cat and mouse game with salary. We go through all of the interview process, which that's another rant for me to get on. And we get to the end and it's not where we want it to be in terms of salary. And then we're like, then we force ourselves into this bad decision where it's not, again, we've watered down what we want. And so what I hope you take from these two contrasting stories is give the person the other chance as early on, not just with salary, but everything. Maybe they'll say no. Maybe they'll say, great. Now we know early in the process, this is not the right opportunity. This is not the right direction. This is not the right person. Lean into getting that no so we can focus our attention on the person that's like, heck yeah, I'll pay you that salary. I was thinking a higher number. Give the person the opportunity to say no. Okay. All right. This is the last one, but not because it's the least important. Emotional intelligence, self-compassion. Probably, I think all of these are equally important, but it's so important. Feelings are the things that keep us honest about what we truly want and that get us into action and that keep us into sustained action. We've all dragged ourselves through things, right? And then collapse at the finish line, right? Feelings are what, keep you running that marathon and smiling the whole way, right? And getting to those milestones, but not collapsing. And they are the difference between this thing that kind of ticks all the boxes, but you're sitting in the interview and being like, please don't hire me, please don't hire me, please don't hire me, right? And the one that makes you jump out of bed in the morning. And so many people come into coaching burned out, tolerating, right? Just feeling totally underutilized and then questioning themselves because they're working at this lower level than they know they're capable of, right? All of those things stem from not paying attention to your feelings. So I wish, as an INTJ, I wish I could tell you feelings weren't important. They are the most important data point, or as important as any thinking, analytical, logical, factual, whatever frame you want to put on it. Pay attention to feelings. They are critical, critical, critical for your long-term career happiness and also to help you fuel the path to get there. And I want to share this quick story. This was early in my coaching. I was talking to a client about visiting her family for the holidays, and she had to make this long drive, and she was having this intense shoulder pain. And she was going back and forth on the call of like, should I drive? I want to see my family for all these reasons, but it's going to be stressful. And I'm thinking about the car ride, and it's just going to be totally painful. 45 minutes of kind of us, trying to find our way in logically. And I said to her at some point, what does your shoulder say? She immediately answered, I'm not going to go. Like her shoulder, her body was telling her the right answer the whole time. And I want you all to think about it. If you're really in tune with your bodies, great. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who tend to be like me, up in the head, our bodies are giving us so many clues. It's that sick pit, right? When we're like, the seems right logically. I'm running it through the pros and cons, but something doesn't feel right, right? It's that twinge in our chest, right? And so I just invite you, it's feelings that are going to help us walk the path to get to improvement without judgment. Okay. And there's this beautiful phrase from this business person that I like that says, with each step, we either get the thing we wanted or the lesson we needed. And I love that concept because it speaks to the importance of action. And maybe it's not, maybe it's the person that says, Caroline, I can't meet your salary. But holy moly, I'm so glad I know this now. Right. And so to stop kind of fighting, finding the answer and keeping ourselves in this perpetual state of not knowing and perpetual state of limiting beliefs, it is the action and that self compassion that allows us not to judge ourselves when we get that lesson. Okay. And the goal here, I would love to say more about this, but I want to be respectful of people's time. The goal is to move from I've failed. And so when something doesn't turn out, is like this heap of criticism and self-judgment and self-loathing to, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that that worked out? And I promise you it happened because that's my story. Didn't even plan for it to happen, but that's my story in being a business owner. Let's go to the next slide. And I just want to play with this last idea. What if there's no such thing as making a mistake or failing? And if you find yourself resisting this idea that there is no such thing as failure, you're not alone. This was one of those concepts that they put it up. There was some kind of aphorism in coaching school about there are no mistakes. And half the room was like, yep, we get it, we're there. And half the room was like, what do you mean? And was like literally arguing with the coach trainer in terms of like, of course there's failure. Of course there's black and white. Of course there are mistakes, right? And so if you're there, no judgment whatsoever. And I invite you to step into this. Let's go to the next slide. I want to leave you with a concept. I want you all to think about an example of hearing no. So maybe it was an explicit no, no, Caroline, we can't meet your salary. No, Caroline, we can't hire you for this job. Maybe it was implicit, right? Someone said that they would help you and they just don't follow through. Or a rejection, right? That you initially thought was bad, but that turned out to be good. So the example I always like to give here is like a bad breakup, right? You're on the floor, you're curled up in a ball, you are crying your eyes out. I'll never find someone like that person, right? And then, oh, no, we found our soulmate. Or, oh, wow, that was really an unhealthy relationship. With the benefit of hindsight and some space and reflection, that horrible thing actually turns out to be different when we look at it through a different lens. Hopefully this is landing with you. If you can think of an example in your career, great. Otherwise, just think of it somewhere, because I'm sure that you all have examples of this. Okay, is this landing with people? Is this starting to open up? Are you I encourage people to wrestle. If you're not there yet, I'm not here to drag you, but I hope you spend some time with this one in particular. The reason I'm underscoring this is because rejection and things not working out and putting the big imprimatur of failure when those things don't work out, or the self-criticism, right? It underpins so much of what keeps us stuck in our career. And so just imagine doggedly pursuing what you want, right? And just continuing to take the steps in the face of whatever comes your way. right? Imagine how different that would feel. Even if you don't see it for yourself, just imagine how different you would be if you believed, huh, can't make a mistake. Fair? Landing? Landing? Hopefully some food for thought. Let's go to the last slide. I appreciate it. And we're a little bit over. You have your roadmap, right? So I encourage you to put all of this stuff in practice. And certainly let's keep the conversation going. Here's my email. Send me everything. Those of you on the call that have worked with me, you know I love hearing from you. Honestly, nothing makes me happier. Send me your questions. Send me your insights. Let us celebrate with you, right? Share the ahas. Share the pushback. Not sure I'm quite there on item number 3 or whatever. Okay, so stick with us. Hope this is oh, if you have other ideas for workshops you'd like to see or kind of wanting to delve deeper into any of these topics, let me know. Would love to create that for you and with you. And if you're looking for 2 very cool and good looking and fun co-pilots, Elijah and I are running our career change course on October 31st. He'll put all of those, all the important information in the comments. At the very least, if you're intrigued, I know a lot of you have been with me. I'm so grateful to you, honestly. I know a lot of you through email or we've actually had conversations for years. And so I'm so grateful to actually see your beautiful faces. And if you're on the fence, right, or I don't think this will help me, Caroline, or what would help me instead, like, let's have a conversation, right? I will be honest. Those of you who've had calls with me, you know I will be honest about what I think the best course of action is, whether that's, you know, participating in this group course or something else. Awesome. All right. Keep your comments, questions, insights coming. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.